right, so in this video, we're going to be looking at how to simplify a messy, complex fraction, but one that involves radicals. So this is exactly the kind of scenario that you will sometimes encounter in a calculus course when you're doing something with the quotient rule. Sometimes they can be kind of messy, and you end up with expressions like this. So what we're going to do is we are going to, similar to when we were solving regular complex fractions, we're going to apply essentially method 2 in this example. I think it's going to be a little easier for these kinds of problems. And what we're going to do is we're going to find a common denominator for any fraction inside of our fraction, and then we're going to multiply by that common denominator. Now, in this case, the common denominator is a square root. It's the square root of x squared plus 5. So it's this guy right here. That's our common denominator. So we're going to take our fraction and we are going to multiply by the square root of x squared plus 5 divided by the square root of x squared plus 5. Like so. Now, if I distribute my radical through the top and the bottom, I'm going to multiply this term by this term, and we'll come back and we'll simplify in a second, and then minus this term times this term. And then in the denominator, we'll have x squared plus 5 also times this radical. Now, up top here, we have a bunch of simplifying that we can do. So for example, this denominator right here and this square root right there, one is dividing the other. They're the same thing. They cancel. So that's good. The other thing that's good here is that these two radicals, it basically, I'm taking a radical and I'm multiplying it by itself. So it's a radical squared, and the square root are going to cancel. And so that's going to leave me without the radical. So my numerator is going to simplify as 2x times x squared plus 5, because square root times square root with the same thing underneath it gives me just the thing. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2. And so that's essentially what we have there. And then the other one, the one that was in the fraction and the multiplier, they cancel. And I'm so left with 2x cubed. And then in my denominator, this parentheses right here is essentially to the 1 power. And this one is to the same thing, to the 1/2 power. So I add the exponents because I have the same base, and I get something to the 3/2 power. So 1 plus 1/2. Now I can simplify a little bit further. I can distribute my through my parentheses here. So 2x times 2x squared is going to be 2x cubed plus 10x minus 2x cubed. And in my denominator, I have already done all the simplifying that I can do. Here, I'm going to have my negative 2x cubed and my positive 2x cubed. They're going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with 10x over by 3/2 power. And that looks like a much simpler expression than the one that I started with. And that is the goal here. We're always trying to simplify. Sometimes we get rid of fractions within fractions, but we still get something that looks relatively complicated. This actually looks not too terrible at this point.